What's going on, guys? Good addition to Connor and Mark Show. Make sure you click the subscribe button on the bottom YouTube page. Also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Connor and Mark Show. I'm back after missing the last episode, but thankfully Mark and Ryan's come to save the day to keep up with the content with our show on our YouTube page and obviously talk about what was going on last week. So I just got busy, but I'm finally graduated and now I'm head forth going with the podcast and then putting out content with a lot of exciting stuff coming up, Mark.
Yeah, for sure, man. And you're totally right. We're back, and Ryan did a great job, and wanted to thank him for hopping on last week on short notice. We're able to get that out on Saturday morning. We will be, returning back to the radio on Saturday, but a lot of action happened over the weekend that, from the time we recorded on Friday to now with, Sixers on the road to the playoffs, finally clinched that number one seed when we recorded Friday. Obviously not. Phillies against the Blue Jays. We'll dive into that series and then some Eagles rookie camp. So we got a lot on the docket and some good interviews as well coming up.
Yeah, it's a lot coming up here, and we're going to look, obviously, with the show coming on Saturday. I think the 76ers will probably underway by then because I know the playing games start the 18th, which we're recording this on the 17th. That's going to obviously play a huge factor with the Sixers as they don't know their first-round opponent yet, but the Boston Celtics will be playing the Washington Wizards, and then the Pacers will be playing the Hornets. So those two games will obviously play a huge factor in where the 76ers are going to be playing in the first round. But, listen, it was huge, obviously, with the Sixers team coming down the stretch and getting that win on second to last game of the season against the Magic to clinch the number one spot. The first time they did it in over 20 years, I think since 2001 when they made their last finals appearance with Allen Iverson and that team. So this team obviously coming into the year had high expectations after really disappointingly getting swept in the first round of the Boston Celtics. They've obviously brought in Doc Rivers, one of the best head coaches in basketball. Darren Moore, he's probably the best executive in basketball. Joel Embiid has blossomed into one of the best players in the NBA and really has reached his full potential. We're close to it. It could be, if it's a higher ceiling, then, I don't know, there's a lot more to come with that. But Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris having a bounce back year, bringing in guys like Green and Curry and Thibault taking the next step and making this team more suited towards their superstars and see this all come to fruition with the 76ers getting the one seed and having home court advantage, especially like we'll get later in the show with the full crowds and capacity getting lifted, I believe, in mid-June. It's going to be a sold-out crowd at the Wells Fargo Center coming up for the 76ers. It's going to set up for a really exciting playoff run. And the 76ers probably have the best shot to make the NBA Finals in the last couple decades. So this team's going to be really exciting to watch after, obviously, we're seeing the NHL playoffs going underway and the Flyers are in it and seeing how exciting those playoffs are. I think the 76ers and the NBA playoff run here is going to be really exciting too.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird to think about it with, fans back here in the stadiums. And like you just touched on, I mean, watching just the NHL playoffs last night, the energy, the electricity, the feeling of finally playoffs, being back with the fans there. And it does make a monumental difference, even especially here in Philadelphia. So, for me and for them clinching the number one seed, I feel like the hype has not been as high as it normally would be out, during this pandemic, if it was obviously not in this pandemic. But nonetheless, they finally did clinch that number one seed. It took them to the final two games, but they got it done. They got 2 wins against the Magic over the weekend. And like you said, first time since they reached the finals in 2001 with Allen Iverson and that 76ers team. But, just looking around this team and in comparison to past years, obviously you got to start off with the head coach. And I know Doc Rivers came up very short in his respect last year with the LA Clippers. And now here in Philadelphia, he gets a fresh slate. He has 2 really good cornerstones he can work with. And Connor, even looking at this team in comparison to past years, I think the bench on this team is pretty deep. Obviously, George Hill is not exactly a guy that can step in there and be a huge producer, but he has playoff experience. He's been in the league. He's been on a bunch of teams. He's played under a bunch of coaches, and I think that's really going to help. And the other thing that you really got to point to is the defensive presence that this team has this year. I mean, Ben Simmons probably a candidate for defensive player of the year, in my opinion. But, we're Philly podcasters, so we're going to go in that bias. Probably the defensive player of the year. And then you got a young, up and coming, really good defender, Matisse Thybulle. So I think this team is different than in past years. Like I said, they went 3-2 in those last 5. There's 2 losses coming to the Heat and the Pacers, but I think whoever they play here in the first round, I know we were talking about this earlier. It could be potentially Washington, could be, Boston. I know those are the 2 hot names right now over the Hornets and the Pacers, but I think whoever this team welcomes into the Wells Fargo first round, I think they are in a much, much better position than they have been in past years.
They really have been. And to see this 180 flip, I think, because after they got swept by Boston in the bubble last year, I think so many people were down on the outlook of this organization. And I was too. I was really down. And then we saw Doc Rivers get brought in, and I think that a lot of people were more upbeat about it, but we just weren't there. And then when Daryl Morey got brought in, I said at that time that this move is something that's going to change this organization from the next 10 to 15 years and revital this process that this organization's been working on ever since, Sam Hinkie came here. And then to see players get brought in that fits the superstars on his team's style of play better. It's really just night and day. And this team was dominant at home this year. They were better on the road this year. They were really bad last year. So this team made them take a step forward with that is huge as well. And to see, just like I said, the crowds coming back and the atmosphere being back is going to be huge for this team going forward in the playoffs. Whoever they play in the first round, and we'll make predictions about what we think is going to happen in the playing games and who do we think is going to be slotted at that 7 and 8 spot when it's all said and done. But I think that I know that I'm more worried about some teams than others in that group. But the 76ers team, man, I think they're dominant, and I think that really the only team that they got to worry about is the Brooklyn Nets. And I think that's what they're ultimately going to play down the stretch. But it looks like they're going to, the path in the Eastern Conference is pretty easy too. They're not going to play Brooklyn until the conference final. They won't play Milwaukee to the conference final. I don't think they'll play Miami to the conference final, which is huge too, because that's one of the teams I think could get them fits. So they would play like Atlanta or the New York Knicks too in a second round if they do win. So their path to the NBA Finals is really I'm not going to say easy because it's not easy to win, get to the NBA Finals, but it's obviously the teams that they're going to be playing are young, inexperienced in the playoffs, and I think that really bodes well for the 76ers.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great point. I mean, I just starting to look down in these standings and just to run it down, obviously Brooklyn at 2, Milwaukee 3, Knicks 4, Hawks 5, Heat at 6, and then the play-in 7, 8, 9, 10 respectively is going to be Celtics, Wizards, Pacers, Hornets. So, to your point, exactly, they may run into the Heat in the second round if they win the first round. Got to get past that first. But I totally agree. I think Miami will be the really team that they're going to circle that is going to give them fits, just because we saw how they played them in the regular season, how they match up. In my opinion, I think this is probably next to the Bucks, maybe the best team in the East matchup wise against the Sixers. But they're going to have, I don't want to brush past this playing round, because whoever they do play, they're going to have to get past them here. And in my mind, to be looked at as a title contender and to get there, I think they're going to have to win this first round pretty decisively. So I think they're going to have some high expectations as they head in here. And no one's going to be giving them a free pass, especially with the year Embiid's been having. Tobias Harris is really coming onto the scene too, really providing, secondary scoring in the sense of not putting it all on Joel Embiid's shoulders. And he's finding a nice little role. I'm interested to see how his game translates to the playoffs and having a little more stability in a role this year. I know last year he was getting tossed around all over the 3-4. It was just not the team that they have this year. So I really think this team has a good shot if they can, establish their game early in the playoffs. They finish the season 8-2, obviously 2-game win streak, as you alluded to, 29-7 at home. If they can take care of business at home and get a few on the road, I don't see why this team surpasses the Nets in the Eastern Conference Final if they get there.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's get into predictions for the playing game. So I'm trying to find the schedule here.
I got it right here, actually. So we have Hornets Pacers tomorrow night, 6:30, and then the Wizards and Celtics right after at 9:00. I believe both of them can be found on TNT, but two good matchups. I mean, obviously, Hornets have not been to the playoffs in a real long time, so that's one of the big things in terms of experience. But yeah, you can lead it off with the predictions because I'm still on the fence a little bit. I'm going to see where you go first.
Are we doing the West or are we just doing the East?
We can do West, though.
Not cool. All right. So starting off, Hornets 9 or Hornets 10, Pacers 9. The Hornets are a pretty fun team this year. They're young. Obviously, LaMelo Ball looked pretty good this year. I know he missed some time, but he's obviously really helped that franchise take a step forward after the year they had last year. Pacers in that 9 seed. I know the Sixers played them a couple games ago, and I don't know. I think I'm leaning Hornets. I just think that they got a lot. They're a little more exciting, a little more younger, and I think they're probably more talented than Pacers. And then 7 and 8. This is pretty interesting because I know you were a little worried about the Celtics. I was worried. If you would have asked me about 2 months ago, I would have been worried. But with Jaylen Brown hurt and done, for the year, and listen, Bradley Beal for the Wizards is unbelievable. And Russell Westbrook, even though I don't love Westbrook, he's still a pretty talented player. And I think the Wizards win that. So I think the Wizards beat the Celtics, get the 7th seed, and I think the Hornets beat the Pacers, and then that would lead to the Celtics and the Hornets playing. And I think I would probably go Celtics win that game, and so I think it'll probably finish when it's all said and done. The Wizards are going to be slide that 7th spot, and then the Celtics will be slide that 8th spot. So, and then you can go, and then we'll go to the West still.
Yeah, so I'm for the Hornets Pacers game. I'm probably gonna have to roll with the Hornets as well. I'm just taking a look here at the injury report, and it looks like Harris LeVert is a maybe. Jeremy Lamb, and again, we're recording this on Monday, the day before the playing game. So it looks like Lamb, Hill, Brogdon, and Sumner are all out. So that looks like a pretty good portion of a mix between their bench and their starters. So I'm going to have to go with the Hornets in that one. And Connor, you should have did a little research on the Wizards because Bradley Beal just came out a little bit ago, said his hamstring's not 100% healthy. I know he's been fighting that a little bit. No, I'm only kidding. I didn't mean to call you out there. I'm just messing with you. But I'm going to go the other way. I'm sticking to my guns here. I just think when it comes down to coaching, in the end, I really think Brad Stevens is just a great mind. And the biggest thing with me is when the slate flips over from the regular season to the playoffs, it's just two completely different types of games. And the Celtics only have to win one game here. And in my opinion, I really like the Wizards. They're really, really hot just in these past few games. But I think the Celtics are going to game plan and find a way to win that. And I think they're going to beat the Hornets. So I'm going to go. So it would be Celtics 7 and Hornets 8, correct? In that order.
If the Hornets win the second game, yeah.
So I would really like to see the Sixers not play the Celtics out of any team in the first round. But yeah, I'm going to go Celtics at 7 and Hornets at 8.
All right, yeah. So all right, we'll start with the West, and it's interesting because the defending champion, defending champion Los Angeles Lakers in that 7th spot. Going up against the Warriors at 8, and then you get the Grizzlies and the Spurs at 9 and 10. So looking at the 7 and 8 spot, you get the Lakers and the Warriors. I don't see the Lakers losing this playing game. It's just
they're gonna destroy them.
Yeah, I think LeBron and Davis. I don't know if they're fully healthy, but I know LeBron won't let that happen. And I think I know the Warriors have had a pretty good year. Curry's been unbelievable. I think that the Lakers are not gonna lose a playing game. So I think they'll be slide the 7th spot, and then at the Spurs Grizzlies, I'm gonna go Grizzlies. They're young. John Morant, is an exciting player for them, and they're favored by 4 points. So I'm gonna take the Grizzlies then. So the 8 and 9 spot, that's a tough one. I probably would go Warriors, just banking on the veteran leadership. They've done it before, Draymond Green, and I know he's not a great player anymore, but I'm banking on them, and I'm just gonna say the Lakers get the 7 and the Warriors get the 8. So
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm kind of going down that same road. I think the Lakers just got plagued with injuries for a month or so, and that really just plummeted their position in the West. So, with that, I think this team is I believe I said this to you Saturday night, Connor. I think, if the Phillies, Eagles, if the Sixers were to make the finals, I really could see the Lakers coming off from the basement and making the NBA finals as well. I think they're just too good, and they're, where they're placed and where they finished isn't really, a good representation of the team that they are. So I think the Lakers roll the Warriors. I think the Grizzlies beat the Spurs as well. Spurs finished on a 4-game losing streak. And went 1-4 in their last 5, and Grizzlies went 4-1 in their last 5. So I think this team's just too high powered. So I'm going to go Lakers 7th seed and Grizzlies at the 8th seed, dude.
Well, I mean, it's gonna set up then that obviously with the 76ers would play I would have the Celtics and you would have who'd you pick in the 8th?
Hornets, my bad. Hornets at 8, yeah.
Well, I'd much rather have the Hornets, I think.
Most definitely. I mean, pretty sure I don't even know how old their oldest player is. I know they got a bunch of young guys in Miles Bridges and Ball, obviously. And
I don't think they'd win a game in my opinion. Maybe
Zeller.
1. Yeah. I mean,
I think we'd sweep them in 4.
Yeah, I think so too. So, well, it's I don't know when. So I don't know when the regular playoffs will begin. I don't know if they've released a schedule on that or where where the 76 will be slotted after game 1, but obviously Saturday we'll be talking about that and obviously what the lines are looking like and the outlook for the 76ers against whoever they're going to play. So, we'll segue now into the Philadelphia Phillies. They have an off day today, the 17th. They'll be back in Philadelphia off their road trip, hosting the Miami Marlins the first time this year, the dreaded Miami Marlins. So, obviously, I didn't watch the game in Florida against Toronto. I heard it was bad.
Lucky.
Yeah, I heard that there's Gene Segura got in an argument on the bench, and Joe Girardi after the game was adamant that he was not going to answer anything about that. The only bright spot that happened that game was Nick Maton looked really good, like usual. He's continuing his really good rookie year. But it's this Phillies team, like I said, it's really one of the most underachieving teams, I think, for the past couple of seasons. They have a lot of talent, and they just don't seem to – they can't go really on a run of wins to separate themselves from the pack. They still slide that second spot in the NL East, but, it's been – I was hoping that maybe they get a couple more wins on the road, and it wasn't horrible. They got a series win in Washington, but, I think they probably should have won 2 or 3 of those games. So, I'm excited about come back home and see what they can do in Cincinnati Bank Park. But what do you make of that road trip, and what do you think the Phillies do from here?
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I hate to say it, but it is a disappointment in my mind, just how they went on the road. I mean, it all stemmed, I believe, the outcome of this entire road trip, and obviously Nationals, they won the series, which was great to see. But that second game against the Braves was really a big turning point in my opinion. They had the Braves on the ropes. I want to say 3 separate times as they were up 3-0, and then as they were down 1-0 and then started to come back there, and in the 11th they were up 7-4 and then ended up losing 8-7. So just the biggest thing with this team is either not finishing or putting themselves in a hole too early. That's just too insurmountable, it seems like, and that was kind of the story with yesterday. They go down 10 runs and then they come back to make it 10-8. I mean, if you let half those runs up, you win that game. So I mean, that's obviously easier said than done, and then, very obvious in terms of the score. But, the biggest thing is the defensive errors yesterday. I mean, that was one of the things that led to the confrontation between Gene Segura and Girardi. And, we've run into this in years past with Gene Segura. It's not Joe Girardi. It's not nothing new. We've had this last year with him not hustling or running a ball out or playing it in the infield. So, I would like to see this team gain some traction, maybe find a spot that, they can go to and find a hitter that can be reliable. But I have to pose this question to you, Connor, and it obviously stems a little bit or mostly from yesterday, from the confrontation and Maton's performance. But with all this movement and all this, I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of uncertainty on this team right now. The center field position's not locked up. Left's looking a little bit shaky. There's really no one guy that they can go to get, very steady production. The bullpen's still a little shaky. The rotation, other than Wheeler's, a little shaky. But to get to my point, do you think Maton could potentially be the new, or do you think Gene Secor is feeling some heat of Maton maybe being the new second baseman for the Phillies?
I don't know if he's feeling heat. I just think that's what he is. I mean, he's been playing. This is his fifth team in his career. But Gene Secor, like, he's been around a lot, and he's a good player. I mean, he's hit number 300 this year, so he's productive. But there's a reason why he's always on different teams. So I don't know. I think that now we're dealing with Bryce, with he's being injured, and I don't know. His teams. I don't know what's going on with injury wise, but there's a lot of question marks with this team, man. I don't really know. Like, it's just seems like every other week there's something going on, and it can't go on a run, and we're hoping obviously for this team to maybe make a run to go to the postseason. But like I said, it's just frustrating to see what happened in the dugout. And I know that it sucks going on the road and losing a lot of games, but you got to reel it in and keep your composure when that stuff's going on. So I don't know. I think that, listen, the bright spot is Nick Maton's looking good. He got 2 home runs, obviously his first 2 of his career, against Toronto. He's a good defender. I think he's big, he's athletic. And I think that's good to have, because now I really think maybe Gene looks at the outlook of this team and thinks that he's probably done, after this year. Might as well, if Nick Maton keeps playing like this, he's probably going to be a starting second baseman next year, because he'd rather go with the young guy who's got the upside. So I don't know. I don't know where the team is going forward for now. But they're going to have some home games here. They're going to have the crowd back at Citizens Bank Park, which is exciting. But this is an important stretch of games here, because they have to start winning some games and get back on track, because this division is really tight, and you just don't want to be on the outside looking in when we're in July and August, and you want a playoff berth. So you don't want to have to climb a mountain to get to that point where you want to be. So these games are important. It's a marathon, like we always say. It's not a sprint. So I don't know. It's frustrating to see where this team's at right now, and hopefully they can come back home and get some games at the bank.
Most definitely. And to dive into that a little bit, like you said, 3-game series, home stand here against the Marlins. And taking a look at these pitching matchups, I think this is a big bright spot for the Phils. Obviously, they're a much better team at home than they are on the road. Here's a division opponent, and really, in my eyes, this is an opportunity to get a sweep. You got Wheeler opening the series here on the mound, and I think that's something that this Phillies team really needs to hone in on and get that first game, set the tone, especially when you're at home, and get out to a good start. Wheeler's last appearance, 6 innings pitched, 8 hits, 2 earned runs, and 7 Ks versus the Nats. Then you got Eflin and Vinny V. I'll throw this over to you, but in my opinion, I really don't mind Vinny V in the starting rotation spot with what we have right now. I mean, look at Anderson. He really did not look good yesterday, clearly. I don't really know if Matt Moore can be a great starter. Not saying that Vinny V is, but in his prior outings, they are relatively short. But in his last one, 5 1/3 pitch, an earned run, 1 home run against, 3 base on balls, and 7 Ks. So really, in my opinion, if he can give you 5 to 6 good innings with a run, not a ton of walks, I think that he can, stay in this rotation and hopefully help this Phil's team, out to the deadline until they can acquire a guy that I really think they're going to need to put in that 4-hole.
Yeah. I don't know. It's the injuries are also just like another issue on top of just the team not really playing well. Bryce being banged up, I think he has a shoulder issue now, so that's not obviously ideal, because when he's been playing this year, he's been productive, but he's dealing with a wrist injury, took a fastball off the face earlier in the year, and it's just you're just hoping that this injury bug can stay away from him so he can, obviously start playing more games. It's nothing that's been too serious, but it's keeping him out of certain games and stuff like that. Kingery's been awful. I don't see how he's on this roster. It's just really he's on this roster just because I think they need somebody.
I think I mean I don't mean to cut you off. I think partly because I paid him, but I know you didn't watch the game yesterday. But his fielding, he cannot be a center fielder. He looked so lost out there in center field yesterday. I don't know if you saw the highlight of him going up to get that one ball. He was off the mark by a few inches, completely missed it. So
yeah, I think
he's not the answer in the center field.
I think Adubel is probably the best bet right now. I don't know. I know Adam Hazley just got back in the team after missing some time for personal reasons. He's not bad. He's solid. I don't think he's a starting center fielder, but he's someone you could throw in there. Mickey Moniak, I don't think he's ready yet. I don't know. There's not a whole lot. Ray McQuinn obviously is not. He's definitely not starting center fielder either. So you got a whole lot of nothing really. That's what it is. So
got a whole lot of below average fielders.
Yeah, and just not a lot of guys can hit either. I mean, Odubel, sometimes he can't hit, and sometimes he'll start raking, and you see the talent that he has because he's got a little pop too. Obviously the home run he hit in Washington was huge, saved the game down there in the bottom of the ninth. But it's one of those days. It's like you don't know what you're going to get out of him. So, but that's the best. That's the best you have at that spot. Especially now with injuries when Bryce or McCutcheon's getting up there. I mean. He still hit a little bit, but he's just not as athletic as he was in his prime. Bohm has been obviously a disappointment this year. I still think he's going to be fine. He's got to give him a little bit of time to, figure it out, figure his swing out. Didi's been on and off, but I still like him. And the pitching, yeah, I think the rotation, and Noel has to be better. I know that he's a little too inconsistent for me. Wheeler's been awesome. I still like Eflin a lot. I think that he had a bad game in the first inning, especially in his last performance. But I think he's a good pitcher. I think you can rely on him down the stretch.
Yeah, no, I think he recovered really well in Washington. I know he gave up those two-run homers in the first inning, but really after that he settled in. Obviously, those are mistakes you can't make, but I think looking forward to this series. I think if with these three pitchers right now, these are your three hottest pitchers in your rotation. And I think this is a really good opportunity to get these three wins and to get the bats going a little bit. I mean, the bats, yesterday, 8 runs, really good for the bats, but it took them a while to wake up. And again, dug a hole so deep that they could not overcome it. So, that's going to be definitely one thing to look at. In regards to Bohm, I agree. I think he has definitely performed below expectation. And I know Ryan and I were talking about this on Friday. You looked at him as more of a contact hitter and get guys, that are on base in rather than a power guy. But, right now he is struggling a little bit. He had an RBI yesterday, which was good to see. And hopefully that kicks him a little bit to get something going. But, the biggest thing and the story of this season has just been consistency. It's, you win, you sweep a series and then you lose a series. And, you can't do that in this league. You can't do that in this division where it's so tight. And, you gotta get these wins to gain some traction here. So, that's it for me on the Phils. I really hope that they come out here. They have 2 great opportunities. They have the Marlins coming into town, and then they have the Red Sox. But really how they do in these next few series, I think we're really going to see the identity of this team moving forward. If we haven't already.
Yeah. I don't know how much you want to talk about the Eagles. I know they did their started rookie camp. We saw obviously Devonta Smith, some of the other guys they've drafted, Landon Dickerson. Obviously it's rookie camp. Some guys they've signed after their draft as well. But it's Nick Sirianni spoke with the media today, and I thought he gave a lot of good answers about competition within training camp and with rookie camp and stuff like that. And I think that he's really kind of righting the ship on his view of how the city and the fans view him after his disappointing. I don't know if it's disappointing his first press conference, but his first he was a little nervous, so I'll give him that. I mean, you're the head coach of an NFL team, you're gonna be a little nervous. So, but I think that he every day he speaks a little more clearly. I think he has a lot more emphasis on what he expects out of his players, out of his coaching staff, and stuff like that. But I think that it's also. I forgot this today. I don't know. It completely slipped my mind. Eagles signed Ryan Kerrigan today. That was a really interesting signing, because he's been an Eagle killer his whole career down in Washington. And I think this is a signing that's very reminiscent of when we signed Chris Long in 2017. I'm not saying it's going to pay out the same way, but I think he's a linebacker, an outside linebacker rusher in Washington. I think that he's going to come in. I think, he had 5.5 sacks last year, and I think he only played like 45% or 50% of the snaps. So that's pretty impressive given the number of snaps that he had.
And one of the best young defenses in the entire NFL, maybe the best young defense.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that he lost snaps, obviously, with Chase Young coming in, and you got Jared Allen on there, and Montez Sweat. There's a lot of young guys who can really get to the passer. So, but he's good, man. I think that's perfect with what they're expecting. I think that you're gonna have Derek Barnett, you got Brandon Graham, and then Josh Sweat, and then Kerrigan. You can come off on the as subs if they're tired, or in pass rushing situations if you just want to go one defensive tackle compared to like two or three. So I mean, I like the move a lot, and I know that there's gonna be a young team and you want to see a lot of guys develop and take steps this year, but you need veterans and you need guys who can come in and play meaningful snaps. So I think this is a guy who can come right in and maybe get 4 or 5 sacks this year, 6 sacks, and play a big role in the pass rushing defense.
Yeah, I mean, other than him obviously signing here and going to be in the defense, I think this is really good just for the defense itself. It gives it, a bit more of a ferocious identity. Obviously, he's not the player that was drafted in 2011. He's a little bit older, but, as you alluded to, 5.5 sacks last year, 13.5 career sacks against the Eagles. Has in his total career 95.5. He is the Washington football team's leading sack getter. So that's something in itself. But, I was really surprised by this signing as well, but definitely a good surprise. I like Singleton. I think he is a very hard worker. I think Kerrigan could help him in his development, which would be awesome for this team. But, overall, just the identity and just the presence and leadership that Kerrigan brings, I think with a real mixed group of veterans and young guys on both sides of the football, I think it's only going to pay, big dividends for this team. But I did want to mention here as I'm taking a look here on ESPN.com, pretty interesting, kind of quote story headline, if you will, but Eagles Devonta Smith thinks him and Jalen Hurts are the best young quarterback wide receiver tandem. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see this as well. I mean, obviously, a quarterback and wide receiver are the two most exciting positions outside maybe the running back position in football, but I'm really excited to see how these two guys mesh together. I mean, chemistry and friendship is obviously something that they don't lack. Playing together at Alabama, pretty sure Devonta Smith said he went to Alabama for Jalen Hurts or to play with Jalen Hurts. So I'm really excited to see how these guys, play out this year and giving Hurts an opportunity. I think it's going to be good for this football team. We might not get the amount of wins that we would really like, but I think we got to embrace a little bit. It may be a little bit of a rebuild season and getting these younger guys, a step up of experience and get them to be, leaders in this league and to be a really good football team coming together. So I think the offense is in really good hands. I mean, outside of Hurts and Smith, I mean, you got Sanders, the running back that we got from Memphis. I can't think of his name right now.
Kenny Gainwell. You got
Gainwell.
Johnson. Yeah,
you got Johnson. You got Reagor. So this team's starting to come together. I mean, some free agents, some draft picks, and I think Sirianni, even just his philosophy of having chemistry and building a relationship with these players.
They could use like maybe a veteran wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
They could use.
Where's AJ Green at? Where'd he sign?
He went to Arizona.
Yeah, he went to Arizona. That's right.
He was. Who else? I mean, offensive line, they're fine. I think on the offensive line for now. I think that defensive line, they're fine now with the Kerrigan move. I
like the idea of a veteran wide receiver, though. I think that can maybe help them out a little bit.
But really what they need now, and the only thing I think that they really need is a second cornerback. That's what they really need. Because I don't know who's gonna play the outside quarterback across from Darius Slett. I really don't know. I think because Avonte Maddox, I like him. He's a nice player. He's a slot guy. So I don't know what they're gonna do. I know that what's his name? Steve Nelson from Pittsburgh was probably the biggest name on the market. I know
That's
Adam
gonna take a
Kaplan.
lot.
Yeah, I know Adam Kaplan, who does Inside the Birds, said that he's a good number two, and he thinks he's a number one. So I don't know. But I think that they really need a corner, dude. Like that's probably they need to address that before the season starts. They need to bring in somebody because they didn't really address it until the fourth round. They got Zach McPherson. I don't know if they expect him to
step in. And
yeah, I mean that's a lot to expect from a fourth round guy. But I don't know. What were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, and also while we're on this, on the Eagles front, obviously Zach Ertz not reporting to OTAs, and that's pretty obvious. I mean, him, at the end of the season looked like it was a done deal that he was not even gonna make it to this far, make it even past the draft, at the absolute latest. So, that's going to be something definitely to watch. I know there's been a few mock trades, a potential reunion. Jeez, listen to me. A reunion with Jordan Hicks, who was a linebacker here in Philadelphia for a little, went to Arizona. I know Arizona's got a huge pool of linebackers, with Simmons and Reddick and guys like that. So I could see that potentially happening. I mean, I would not even rule out a possibility of maybe a lower level corner for him, draft picks. But, I could definitely see Ertz being moved before the end of the season here because he does not seem like he wants to come back to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I don't know where. I think he's probably just gonna get cut. If that's I know they're gonna wait maybe past that June 1st date is where I think the money is no longer. I think something happens with his money. It's a lot cheaper to cut him. I think after that date. So I don't think I don't think he's gonna come back here. I don't know where he's gonna go. But I mean, I know that the hypothetical trade that you mentioned with Jordan Hicks, coming back and sending maybe Ertz to Arizona would be pretty nice. I don't think they would do that though. I just don't think that Zach Ertz market is that valuable. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But before we end on the show, it looks like it will be June 11th is when full capacity stadiums in the city of Philadelphia will be back. I believe Memorial Day weekend is when all restrictions in Pennsylvania will get lifted in the city of Philadelphia, and June 11th will be when all the stadiums will be full go. I know the Eagles put out a statement the day that it dropped that they're excited for the fall, that there's going to be full crowd at the link. This obviously pertains a lot to the 76ers, like we alluded to before, that they will have a full crowd for their playoff run coming up here, which is super exciting. The Phillies obviously will have a full stadium in Citizens Bank Park, which is super exciting. So Mark, I'll start with you. Like, how cool is it to finally have, crowds? I know we're seeing it in other states because I was watching the Florida Panther game last night with Dan Bay. I mean, it was pretty bad.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was, and that was a great game too. The atmosphere along with the game that was being played was awesome. So what's your reaction to Philadelphia finally getting back to full capacity stadiums?
Yeah, I mean, real quick, that Florida Panthers Tampa Bay Lightning game.
That was a great game.
If you're listening to this and you have not watched game one and you love hockey for fighting and hits and just all that stuff, that is the series definitely to watch. I don't think there was one time in between the whistles where one guy wasn't punching another guy or grabbing another guy or commotion going on after the whistles. So definitely awesome. And like you said, the fans, the energy, everything in the arena added to that, the playoff atmosphere. But, bringing it back here to Philadelphia, I think, the biggest thing for Philadelphia and not just saying this because I am from Philadelphia, but the fan energy is something that is so unique in this city that just really drives our teams. And one of the biggest things with the Eagles and that I haven't really even taken into account was last year with no fans. I think that had one of the greatest impacts on how they, on their record and how they played, and obviously did not play a good season. But I think this year with Devonta Smith and Jalen Hurts and, all these young guys and the amp up and the build up to the season, I think it's going to have a huge impact. So I'm super excited, man. I can't wait to be back. I know as soon as they go back to the 100% capacity, I know we were talking about, either hitting the Sixers or a Phillies game. Eagles might be a little too expensive, but definitely excited, man. I'm really haven't realized or hasn't really hit me yet that it's coming back. It's going to be full stadiums, but dude, it's awesome to return to a sense of normalcy, not only in the sports world, but just life in general. And I can't wait, dude, to get down to a Phillies game or even a potential Sixers playoff game.
Yeah, it's about time in my opinion, but
It was time last year. No.
No, you're not wrong. But no, it's cool, man. I'm excited, and I know there's hockey games tonight too. So there's gonna be. I mean, this will probably be out tomorrow, but Bruin Capitals tonight, Predators Hurricanes. That'll be pretty cool. Blues Avalanche. So I mean, out of those three, I think the Hurricanes probably have the most people. I would guess. DC probably not. So. So 3 games tonight. Then obviously the Islanders Penguins tomorrow. Lightning. I'm really excited about the Lightning Panthers series. I think that was a really good game one. Also the Vegas series with the Wild. That was a really good game one too.
No pun intended. That was wild. I don't know how they won in overtime. Fleury played out of his mind.
Cam Talbot, man, he played saves too. Yeah, Fleury made a lot of huge saves. He really did. Yeah,
Talbot played great as well. But when your goaltender only lets in 1 goal and it's the overtime winner. Obviously, on the flip side for the Wild, it's the same, much of the same when your goalie pitches a shutout. But I think this Vegas team's just built different this year. I think this is just a little bump in the road for them. But with the way Fleury played the entire regular season, 15 straight playoff appearances for Marc-Andre Fleury, which is a crazy stat, by the way.
Yeah.
With his pedigree, with his experience, with his cups, I think this team, I personally think this team goes on a run. They win 4 in a row. They knock the Wild out, and I have them winning the Stanley Cup for me this year. So, I mean, I'm excited for all the series, man. And again, like you said, the fans back in the stadium for playoff hockey just makes it that much more intense and enjoyable.
I agree. All right, well, just go wrap it up here. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Connor Mark Show. Subscribe to our YouTube page, and then we'll see you guys Saturday.